the heart of the 13th century, amidst the vast cultural crossroads of the Islamic world, a man emerged whose words would transcend time, language, and geography. Jalaluddin Muhammad Rumi, born in 1207 in the city of Balkh, now part of modern-day Afghanistan, was destined to become one of the most influential and beloved poets in human history. But Rumi was more than a poet. He was a mystic, a philosopher, and a beacon of divine love, whose teachings continue to guide seekers on the path of spiritual enlightenment. His name, simply spoken, evokes images of whirling dervishes, poetic verses soaked in longing, and the deep, eternal search for union with the divine. Rumi's early life was shaped by both privilege and upheaval. His father, Baha'u'llah, was a respected Islamic scholar and mystic in his own right. Due to the political instability and the impending Mongol invasions, Rumi's family fled their homeland, journeying across the Islamic world through cities such as Baghdad, Mecca, Damascus, and eventually settling in Konya, present-day Turkey. This exposure to a diverse range of cultures and traditions enriched Rumi's spiritual and intellectual growth, laying the foundation for the universality that his poetry would later reflect. Even as a young man, Rumi exhibited remarkable intelligence and spiritual sensitivity. Under the guidance of his father and later his father's student, Burhanuddin Muhakkik, Rumi was immersed in classical Islamic sciences, including theology, jurisprudence, and philosophy. He soon became a respected religious teacher in Konya, attracting students and followers with his eloquence and depth. Yet, at this stage, his life was still rooted in orthodox religious scholarship. The transformation that would ignite his poetic fire and elevate his soul to the heights of mysticism had not yet occurred. That transformation came in the form of a man named Shams-e-Tabrizi. Shams, a wandering dervish from Tabriz, entered Rumi's life like a bolt of lightning. Brilliant, unpredictable, and entirely disruptive. Their meeting is shrouded in both historical fact and mystical legend. Some say Shams asked Rumi a single question that altered the course of his life. Who was greater, Muhammad or Bayazid al-Bastami? Rumi's answer and the ensuing conversation sparked a connection so profound that it plunged him into a spiritual rapture. For months, the two men retreated from the world, engaged in deep spiritual dialogue. Rumi was captivated by Shams' raw spiritual intensity, while Shams saw in Rumi the potential for true divine realization. Their bond, however, was not easily accepted. Rumi's disciples and family members grew jealous and resentful of Shams' influence. Eventually, Shams disappeared, perhaps murdered, perhaps simply vanished into the world once more. Rumi was heartbroken, devastated by the loss. But from that wound, from that chasm of pain and longing, bloomed a flood of divine poetry that would define his legacy. In the wake of Shams' disappearance, Rumi turned inward, his grief transmuted into verses of unparalleled beauty. He began composing the Divan-e-Shams-e-Tabrizi, a massive collection of lyric poetry dedicated to his lost friend and spiritual mirror. These poems are not mere expressions of sorrow. They are songs of ecstasy, of yearning, of surrender to the divine. Shams, in Rumi's work, becomes both a real person and a symbol of the divine beloved. Through the metaphor of love, Rumi explored the deepest truths of existence, often blurring the lines between human and divine affection. As Rumi evolved spiritually, he developed a following that gave birth to a new form of Sufi practice, the Mevlevi order, more commonly known as the whirling dervishes. This order, founded by Rumi's followers and later institutionalized by his son, Sultan Walad, centered around the practice of Sema, a ritual dance that symbolized the soul's journey toward God. Spinning in long white robes, with one hand turned upward to receive divine grace, and the other turned downward to share it with the world, the dervishes embodied Rumi's philosophy of surrender, love, and spiritual union. Rumi's poetry is remarkable not only for its content, but for its accessibility. Though deeply rooted in Islamic mysticism, his verses speak to universal themes: love, loss, divine longing, and the mystery of the soul. He often used everyday imagery, wine, music, birds, the moon, to express profound spiritual truths. "You were born with wings," he wrote. "Why prefer to crawl through life?" His metaphors invited readers to look beyond the surface of things, to find the sacred in the mundane, and to embrace the dance of life with open hearts. What makes Rumi truly extraordinary is the way his words resonate across cultures and centuries. Though he wrote in Persian, his message has found voice in countless languages, with translations bringing his insights to readers all over the world. In the United States alone, Rumi has been among the best-selling poets for decades. In Iran, Afghanistan, and Turkey, his works are considered national treasures. In India, Pakistan, and across the Muslim world, Rumi's verses are often recited in spiritual gatherings, quoted in sermons, and etched into hearts. Unlike many theologians or scholars, Rumi did not write to impose doctrine or dogma. Instead, he offered an invitation, a call to awaken the heart, to seek the beloved in every face and every sound. "Don't look for me in a human form," he urged. "My real form is the spirit, and that is eternal." He challenged the boundaries of religious exclusivity, urging readers to see that truth was not confined to one path, one book, or one ritual. For Rumi, the essence of religion was love. His masterwork, the Masnavi-e-Manavi, often called the Quran in Persian, is a 6-book poetic epic filled with parables, stories, and spiritual insights. In it, Rumi wove together tales from Islamic tradition, folklore, and personal experience to illustrate complex metaphysical ideas in simple, approachable ways. It is both a literary masterpiece and a spiritual manual. The Masnavi explores themes of ego, love, justice, and the struggle of the soul, and it remains a central text in Sufi study and devotion. Rumi's vision of love was not limited by the definitions of the world. It was not confined to romantic attachment, nor was it merely a sentiment. For Rumi, love was the force that moved the universe, the energy that turned the stars, the reason behind creation itself. He saw every element of life, joy and pain, union and separation, as a mirror reflecting the divine. When he spoke of love, he often did so in paradoxes. Love as fire and water, as agony and delight, as both annihilation and the path to eternal life. In this way, Rumi's poetry became a mystical roadmap for those who sought not just belief, but direct experience of God. One of the most distinctive elements in Rumi's thought is the concept of annihilation of the self, the Sufi idea of fana. According to this doctrine, the ego, or lower self, must be completely dissolved to allow the divine light to shine through. This is not an act of despair, but a joyous surrender. Rumi often described this transformation using the metaphor of a moth consumed by the flame. The moth doesn't fear the fire. It is drawn to it with passion, with full knowledge that it will be unmade in the process. For Rumi, to die in love is to truly live. It is in this annihilation that one is reborn as a vessel of divine presence. His poetry is filled with the imagery of intoxication, though not in the literal sense. Wine and drunkenness, common metaphors in Sufi literature, represent the state of divine ecstasy. When Rumi writes of wine, he is not celebrating indulgence, but pointing toward the rapture of losing oneself in the presence of God. "I am so drunk," he writes, "I have lost the way in and the way out." This intoxication is spiritual, a surrender so complete that the seeker forgets their own name, identity, and existence, and becomes a reflection of the eternal. Throughout his work, Rumi emphasized the idea of the heart as the seat of divine knowledge. Unlike the rational mind, which seeks logic and control, the heart understands through feeling, through love, through resonance with the infinite. "The wound is the place where the light enters you," he wrote, turning pain into a sacred portal. For Rumi, suffering was not meaningless. It was a gift, a catalyst, a teacher. Every heartbreak, every loss was an opportunity to be drawn closer to God. The broken heart, emptied of all else, could finally become full of the divine. Rumi's universal appeal stems in part from this deeply human approach to the spiritual. He did not place himself above others. He did not speak from a mountaintop, detached and authoritative. Instead, he walked alongside the reader, laughed and wept with them, shared in their longing. His voice was not that of a preacher, but of a lover, gentle, passionate, compassionate, and raw. "Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right-doing," he wrote, "there is a field. I'll meet you there." This was his religion, beyond labels, beyond sex, beyond boundaries. His influence extended far beyond the circle of his disciples. Artists, musicians, philosophers, and seekers from all walks of life found inspiration in his verses. In the East, he was revered as a saint. In the West, he became a symbol of interfaith harmony and spiritual depth. Figures such as Goethe, Emerson, and even modern songwriters have drawn from Rumi's work. His words have been set to music, adapted into stage performances, and quoted in films and speeches. Rumi's poetry became a bridge, a meeting place between East and West, between the sacred and the secular, between the soul and the divine. Despite the centuries that separate us from his time, Rumi's language still feels fresh, immediate, even intimate. His metaphors speak to modern hearts because they arise from eternal truths. The pain of separation, the ecstasy of union, the confusion of the seeker, and the silence of the mystic, these are not bound by era or geography. In a world increasingly fragmented by ideology, culture, and politics, Rumi offers a language that transcends division. He invites us into the realm of unity. The legacy of Rumi is also carried through the Mevlevi order, which continues to perform the Sema ceremony to this day. These whirling dervishes, in their silent spinning, embody the harmony of body, soul, and spirit. The ritual is not merely performance. It is prayer, meditation, and art. It reflects the turning of the universe and the cyclical nature of life. Through movement, the dervish seeks stillness. Through repetition, he finds transcendence. This dance, inspired by Rumi's spiritual path, is a visible manifestation of the inner journey. But perhaps what endures most powerfully is not the rituals or even the books, but the experience of Rumi's words as a personal conversation. When one reads Rumi, it often feels as though he is speaking directly to the reader, gently whispering truths that the heart already knows but has forgotten. His verses resonate not because they teach us something entirely new, but because they awaken something ancient and sacred within us. In many ways, Rumi was a rebel. He challenged religious formalism, criticized empty rituals, and opposed the rigid dogmas that separated people from the divine. Yet he was also deeply rooted in the Islamic tradition. His mysticism did not reject religion, it transcended its outer forms to embrace its essence. He saw the Quran not merely as a book of laws, but as a love letter from God to humanity. His interpretations were poetic, symbolic, and filled with light. In this balance between tradition and transcendence, Rumi offers a model for spiritual seekers today. His works are preserved in numerous collections, the most prominent being the Masnavi, the Divan-e-Shams, the Fihi Ma Fihi, It Is What It Is, and Majalis-e-Saba, 7 sessions. These texts are studied not just in literary circles, but in spiritual gatherings across the world. Sufi orders continue to teach his ideas as living truths, passed from heart to heart, not merely through reading but through experience. In the pages of Fihi Ma Fihi, a prose collection of Rumi's discourses, one sees a different side of him, less poetic, more direct. These talks reveal the depth of his wisdom and his ability to speak with clarity and simplicity on complex spiritual matters. They demonstrate how Rumi engaged with his students and listeners, not as an inaccessible sage, but as a compassionate guide responding to the real challenges of daily life. In these writings, he discusses themes like humility, intention, love, service, and the veils that cover the heart from truth. Even without rhyme or metaphor, his words carry a rhythm of the soul, gentle, persistent, and awakening. Rumi's ability to speak across spiritual traditions is part of why he remains beloved by people of many faiths. Though firmly rooted in Islam and deeply influenced by the Quran and Hadith, his metaphors often echo teachings that feel at home in Christian mysticism, Buddhist thought, or the non-dualistic philosophies of the East. He never called for conversion or conformity. Instead, he pointed all seekers toward the same inner reality. He believed that all true paths lead to God, and that the divine can be found not through labels, but through sincere yearning and presence. This inclusive spirituality has made Rumi a symbol of unity in a fractured world. In a time when religion is often manipulated to divide and control, Rumi's voice reminds us of the original purpose of faith: to connect, to heal, to remember the oneness behind all forms. His poetry does not preach, it sings. It doesn't instruct with rigidity, it invites with beauty. "Be like a tree and let the dead leaves drop," he wrote, urging readers to release the weight of fear, pride, and judgment, and to root themselves instead in the soil of divine love. Even Rumi's use of language was revolutionary. Persian, the language of his writings, was already a rich medium for poetry. But Rumi took it beyond its traditional limits. He blended sacred and secular, high and low, academic and folkloric, to create something entirely his own. He would shift from Quranic allusions to tales of drunkards in taverns, from philosophical reflections to playful jokes, from the agony of separation to the bliss of union, all within a single verse. This elasticity made his work not just beautiful, but alive. It reflected the full range of human emotion and experience, woven together by the thread of divine love. Over the centuries, Rumi's tomb in Konya has become a major site of pilgrimage. People of all backgrounds come to visit the green-domed mausoleum, not out of obligation, but from a deep sense of connection. The presence felt at his resting place is not just about history, it is about spirit. It is said that when Rumi died in 1273, Christians, Jews, Muslims, and people of other beliefs all gathered to mourn. His death was not seen as the end, but as a reunion with the beloved, the ultimate wedding. That day is still celebrated each year as Sebi Arus, the wedding night, marking Rumi's passing not with sorrow, but with music, prayer, and remembrance. To understand Rumi is to understand the Sufi path. The path of the heart. It is a journey inward, a process of unlearning the self, stripping away the ego, and recognizing the divine spark within. Rumi did not promise ease. His path was full of fire, full of longing, full of trials. But he also promised that every seeker would be met, that every cry would be answered, that what you seek is seeking you. His poetry assures us that the longing we feel is itself the proof of the beloved's nearness. He often spoke of the mirror, another powerful metaphor. To see God, one must polish the heart like a mirror, removing the dust of ego, desire, and illusion. When the heart is clean, it reflects divine light clearly. This is not a process achieved through knowledge alone, but through love, service, and surrender. Rumi's spiritual life was not removed from the world. It was deeply embedded in it. He saw the sacred in relationships, in grief, in music, in silence. He called for a spirituality that is not just practiced, but lived. Despite the countless translations and interpretations of his work, much of Rumi's depth is still lost outside its original language and cultural context. His poetry contains wordplay, double meanings, and references that don't always translate cleanly. Yet, even in translation, the essence remains. His voice carries across time because it speaks to something timeless within us. "Don't get lost in your pain," he wrote. "Know that one day your pain will become your cure." These are not the words of someone removed from suffering, but someone who walked through it, transformed by it, and offered its lessons back to the world. His concept of love was not passive or sentimental. It was dynamic, consuming, and ultimately redemptive. Love, for Rumi, was the only force powerful enough to break the ego, to dissolve the boundaries of I and you, and to reveal the one behind the many. This is why his poems often speak not just of love, but of burning, of madness, of being shattered. "Love is the whole thing," he wrote. "We are only pieces." That sense of incompletion, of yearning, of knowing we are not yet whole is not a flaw, it is a sign. It means the journey has begun. Rumi's teachings continue to be relevant in a modern world marked by noise and distraction. In an age of quick answers and shallow connection, Rumi calls us to stillness, to presence, to depth. He teaches that silence can speak louder than words, that the answers we seek are not out there, but already within. His emphasis on inwardness is a powerful antidote to the external obsessions of today. "Why do you stay in prison?" he asked, "when the door is so wide open?" That question echoes in the heart of every reader. Through his life and work, Rumi invites each of us to become lovers, not just in the romantic sense, but as those who live with open hearts, who seek truth beyond the surface, who see the divine in all things. He reminds us that to be human is to be a seeker, and to seek is to love, and to love is to return home. In the final arc of Rumi's journey, what becomes most clear is that he was not merely writing about the divine, he was living in it. Every moment of his life after his encounter with Shams was infused with a consciousness that transformed pain into beauty, absence into presence, and silence into poetry. He did not aim to become famous, yet his name endures. He did not seek worldly power, yet he has influenced empires. What made him eternal was his surrender, his willingness to become a flute through which the breath of God could sing. The message of Rumi is not bound by history or faith, and that is why his verses continue to rise with every new generation. Wherever there is a broken heart, his poetry finds a place to rest. Wherever there is a soul longing for meaning, his words light the path. He speaks to those who pray and those who don't, to those who believe in God and those still searching. His poetry doesn't convert, it connects. It offers a vision of humanity in which the divisions between us fade, and what remains is love. Rumi's spiritual insight is deeply relational. He did not isolate himself in a cave or monastery. He walked among people, taught students, raised children, and lived a fully human life. His mysticism was not abstract, it was lived. He taught that every relationship is a reflection of our relationship with the divine. Every heartbreak, every joy, every encounter is an opportunity to know God more intimately. That's why, in his poems, the beloved is sometimes a friend, sometimes a teacher, sometimes God, sometimes even the self. They are all masks through which the ultimate beloved speaks. Even centuries after his passing, his tomb in Konya is not a site of mourning, but of celebration. Thousands of pilgrims, scholars, and tourists make the journey every year to pay their respects, not simply to a poet, but to a soul who opened doors within their own hearts. The Mevlevi ceremonies, with their music and whirling, are less about memory and more about continuity. Through them, Rumi still spins, still sings, still teaches. His presence is not past, it is present. His influence on Sufism has been profound. Many Sufi orders, even those not officially affiliated with the Mevlevis, draw from his teachings. He has shaped the language of love in Islamic spirituality, offering metaphors that continue to nourish hearts. In Rumi's Sufism, we see a path that is not about renunciation of the world, but about transforming the world through love. He believed in inner revolution, a turning of the soul so complete that it becomes aligned with the rhythm of the universe. And yet, for all the depth and grandeur of his work, Rumi's genius lies in his simplicity. He knew how to say what others only felt. He could put eternity into a single line. Try to be a rainbow in someone's cloud, he might say if he lived today, though his actual words were, be like the sun for grace and mercy. Be like the night to cover others' faults. Be like running water for generosity. These are not just lines to remember, they are principles to live by. Perhaps Rumi's most lasting legacy is the inner permission he gives to feel deeply, to question freely, to fall apart and be remade, to trust that even in our brokenness, we are on the path. He removes the pressure to be perfect and replaces it with the invitation to be real, to cry, to dance, to doubt, to burn, to open, and to love. That for him is the true practice of spirituality. His voice continues in art, in prayer, in protest, in healing. In moments of silence, his presence can be felt, as though he is still whispering across time. Come, come, whoever you are. Wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, it doesn't matter. Ours is not a caravan of despair. This invitation has not expired. It is as alive today as it was centuries ago. Rumi's life reminds us that mystics are not born. They are made, often through loss, longing, and love. He transformed every pain into a portal, every moment into a message. In doing so, he gave the world not just verses but vision, a vision of unity in a world of division, a vision of love that burns through every illusion, a vision of God not far away in the heavens, but close, closer than our very breath. In the end, Rumi does not merely ask us to read his poems. He asks us to live them, to become the lover who loses everything but gains eternity, to become the flame and the moth, the question and the answer, the music and the silence. He asks us to dance, not for show, but for truth, to whirl inward until we, too, are empty enough for the divine song to play through us. And so he lives on, not just in books, but in every heart that listens for love, in every soul brave enough to burn, and in every whisper of wind that says, turn, turn, turn.